Welcome back, YouTubers. So, where we left off last time was installing the valves on the head of the Predator 212. Didn't even need a tool to put them back in. To take them out to break that the lock they had, it was a lot easier, so I did it that way. But putting them back in, just kind of put your finger on the back there, hold the valve in, set the spring down, the retainer on top, and then the retainer clips, and you push down around the retainer, let the clips fall down into the place to where they lock on the tab on the top of the valve there, and slowly release the spring pressure, make sure they've taken a seat, and that's about it. So these are just stock springs, there's not much pressure on them, so using your thumb is pretty easy to do. So but the intake valve definitely was hard getting off. It was kind of locked down there pretty good. Don't forget, on the intake side, that's the one with your longer bolts, there's the oil seal that goes down at the very bottom. I'm not sure if you can see that extra plate that the one side has that the other does not. But that's basically your oil retention seal. There it is, back down there inside the spring, if you can see it. So put that on there before you do the spring, the cap, and then the retention clips on there. So that's all we've done. Just kind of wiped it down a little bit, put the head gasket on there. I'm using the old head gasket and old parts right now because, like I said, I've got plans to build this motor in the future. I just want to make sure it's going to run and there was no major damage to it other than what we found and fixed. So we honed out the cylinder and got actually all those scratches out of there. So it's got a nice 45-degree crosshatch. I don't know how hard it is to see on the phone there, but got a nice crosshatch in there. We were able to get those surface scratches out. I thought they were deeper. They weren't. We lucked out. Cam looked good. The lobes aren't scored up or anything like that. Cam gear looks good. Crank looks good. No aluminum rod on there or anything like it was run out of oil or anything. So that's good. Push rods are straight. Clean those up. For a second, let's talk carbs and air filters and all that stuff. So the stock carb that comes on a Predator is, run of the mill. It's probably set for EPA emission standards, and there's really no adjustment on there other than maybe jetting it up. When you buy aftermarket carbs, if you check, you can buy ones that have an adjustment on them. So let me see if I can show you where that's at. So you can still jet the aftermarket ones up, and if you're doing any kind of performance, you will want to be able to do that and have that option. But if you can see on the stock carb right here, they've got a little tab blocking off any kind of fuel adjustment. They don't want you touching that. On the aftermarket carbs, they actually have a needle valve right here, so you can adjust that and get your motor running a little bit better. Like I said, they're factory preset on the factory carbs to run, certain fuel for kind of a very general use. If you're higher or lower elevation or doing performance things, you're going to want one that's adjustable. So you can get them on eBay or Amazon. Aftermarket ones, they work great. Never had a problem with one. Some of them just might need to adjust it just a little bit to have that motor running nice and happy, and go from there. So one of the other things I've noticed, well, it looks like he chewed that up pretty good too. So all the scoring we had in the cylinder was probably more than likely due to him either not running an air filter, or in this case, he told me that the air filter box was cracked. And I don't know how hard it is to see, but there's just a ton of dirt in the carburetor. That's not good. You don't want that running through your engine. Let me spin it around here. Yeah, you see all that dirt in there? That was going through his engine. And that's probably what led to the scoring on the sides of the cylinders. That certainly didn't do the other stuff like the governor damage and all that. But here's the air filter box that came with it. You could tell it's been cracked off of the base. Looks like he had it taped on there. I guess he tried maybe. But yeah, you see all that crap in there? If it doesn't have a good seal, your carburetor's sucking that down. going into your engine. Shortens the life of your motors. So anyway, let's start putting this motor together today. As you can see, I've got the pistons sitting up there, and I've got some blue marks on there. Now those are just rough, they're not exact, but they're basically clocking the rings. You don't want all the ring gaps to line up in the same exact position. And by that, I mean, if you look at these rings, you'll see the oil ring has a gap right here. Kind of hard to see on camera, but it's got a gap right there. You don't want the gap with that ring to line up with the gap with this ring to line up with the gap with the top ring. You want them about 120 degrees out from one another. So you can see I got the top ring over here lined up there. I've got the second ring lined up there, and then I've got the oil scraping ring down here. It needs to move over just a whisker. So before you put it in your piston ring compressor, you're going to want to clock those and get those in the right spot. You're going to put some oil, a little bit of engine oil on the rings before you put them into the compressor, just to help it slide and release once it gets into the cylinder. This is a compressor tool. You can buy them automotive shops, you know, AutoZone, Napa, not Checker anymore, O'Reilly's. So, but you can get all that stuff there. Just make sure you get one that can go small enough to do the diameter of the cylinder. This can go down smaller yet still, so I have it opened up. But anyway, so what you're going to do is you're going to compress those rings down without dropping your piston. And you're going to set it up here like this. Slide it in with the piston inside of there. And then you're going to use the butt end of a hammer to just tap it down into that cylinder. So we'll get to that. Also very important when you're putting motors together, a lot of people, some of them just use engine oil. I can use that on certain stuff, like on the sides of the piston and all that. I'll use the engine oil, but for bearings, cams, connecting rods, seals, I use some Permatex Ultra Slick engine assembly lube. Good stuff, but it's real syrup like, and when it's cold it gets real stringy, which can get messy. Yeah, it's some good stuff. It's basically going to lube any kind of bearing or rotating surface long enough during first startup until oil can get pumped around inside of there, or splashed around. So there's a splash system until oil can get into all those points and keep everything happy and lubricated. You don't really want any moving part dry on a startup, so that will definitely create some wear, some unnecessary wear, and we don't want that. We want to keep it living long, happy, and well lubricated. I know I'm happy when I'm well lubricated, so little joke there. Anyway, so yeah, we will try to start putting this back together. I'll do my best to try and keep the camera. Like I said, I don't have a stand or anything to hold it yet. So these carbs out of the way. We'll be doing that farther down the road. And try and get a decent view so you can see everything that's going on during assembly. Alright, it's going to be a long video. Grab some popcorn. Alright, so first we're going to start with our crankshaft. Now you have your cam gear right here. Right there, and then if you notice, we took the governor gear off, so that is no longer. Cam gear is always going to go facing towards you. So what we'll do is we'll take our little brush, our oopy goopy assembly lube. I told you that stuff's stringy. Gonna put a little bit on here. Remove any dirt and debris you might have on there, like dog hair. Deal with a lot of that out here. So you want to give it a light coat. It's not going to take a whole lot, but basically when you put your crank into the seal up there, you're not going to want that seal to be dry, because that will tear up your seals in a hurry, and it won't be fun for anybody if you have to rip your motor back apart. Now I've got a dummy syringe loaded up with just regular engine oil. So I'm going to shoot some of that into the bearing up here. Maybe. There we go. And get that good around the bearing, a little bit on the seal. See if I can angle it a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing. Just put a little bit around the bearing here. So you don't want a crazy amount because it's going to pull down to the bottom. You're going to have to clean it up because it's going to want to run out the bottom edge there. So before you seal the case with the gasket, you're going to have to do that. Okay. All right. So crank it in. There we go. All right. So next, we're going to take our piston with the clocked rings, and we are going to put the ring compressor around it, like so. Now the arrow on the piston, if you haven't noticed, there's an arrow on there, points down towards the bottom of the engine. And your connecting rod, back half will go on like such. Torque it down. Obviously you're going to put some oil on these threads to get a proper torque reading, and you're going to torque it in steps. So I think it's a total of 108 inch-pounds of torque for that junction there on those two bolts, and you're going to do it in steps. So you're going to do like 40 40, 70 70, 100 100, 108 108. Do it in steps, back and forth, top and bottom, top and bottom. You don't just torque one side down all the way and then torque the other side down all the way. So let's take these bolts out, set them aside. Put the piston ring compressor in. This one actually looks like it's just a little too big for this motor, but we shall try. Let's see if I can get in there without cracking her in. Oh, you know what I forgot to do was put some oil on here. Help everything slide easier. I'll do that now. There we go. Just a light coat, help that slide in there. Probably won't hurt to put any on the inside of this compressor too. Help that piston slide out without damaging the rings. That's why I use the needle. It just makes it easier to get down into those spots. So let's hope it goes in. Boom, just like that. Piston is in. See, want to see? There you go. So there's no ring hanging out the side of there. They went in pretty smooth. The oil definitely helps in that. So something you definitely want to do. Alright, so you can see your connecting rod coming down right here. You're going to want to turn your crank to meet that connecting rod. It's going to make me a liar. There we go. And very important you install this the correct way. Obviously you don't want it to go up, you want it to go down. This dipper right here is what actually splashes down in oil, slings it up all on the inside of the engine, keeps everything lubricated. So be kind of hard to mess up the direction on that, but I've seen it happen. So alright, so we're going to clamp that around there. You're going to put your connecting rod bolts in. A little bit of oil on there. The first one in. If you got big hands, this part can be a pain in the butt. If you don't have a torque wrench, I suppose you could just put them in and snug them. 108 inch-pounds isn't a whole lot. If you go too hard, you're just going to strip the threads right outside of that aluminum connecting rod. So you don't want to do that. Sometimes it's hard to get torque wrenches down and in there. If you don't have one that will fit, then you know, I get it. Sometimes you gotta use unorthodox methods, but prepare yourself should something go wrong because of improper torque specs. So you always run that risk. There's torque specs for a reason. But I'm sure tons of people have put these together without torque wrenches, and they've been just fine. Where's the hole? Come on, produce your hole. There it is. Found the hole. Run that down in there. Now these are 10 millimeter. And I'm just going to slightly snug them with a regular ratchet. And then I'm going to see if my torque wrench will actually fit in there. Get out of the way, Cam. You're blocking everybody's view. Okay. So, now that that's done, I have put my torque wrench somewhere. Where did I put it? Where'd you go? There it is. Alright, so I got the inch-pound torque wrench, quarter-inch drive, and it goes up to 200 inch-pounds. Not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. So we'll start off at probably about 40. All the way down. 30. 40. Alright. So I don't know if you can see that, but I got it set for 40 inch-pounds. Put the socket on there and hope this thing fits. Okay. Okay, it's pretty much already at 40. And I just barely snug those things with a regular ratchet. So, there we go. Alright, by the way, this is a click type torque wrench. Okay, so now let's bump it up to 70, 50, 60. 70. And like I said, you're going to alternate top, bottom each time you do an adjustment on the torque. Alright, 70. Glad my torque wrench fits in here. Sometimes they don't. Alright, 70. Let's take it up to 100. Okay, we're set at 100. Do the top one first. Alright, bottom. Okay. Alright, final torque, 108. 108 inch-pounds. Okay. Done. Rod is in. Okay, so now that that is in, we're going to put the cam in. So here's our cam. Take a little bit of our oopy goopy looby dooby. Stringy thingy. It's like cheese on a pizza that just came out of the oven. So you're going to want to definitely rub some on here, because this is basically the back bearing of the cam. You're going to want to rub some on the lobes, because those are going to be dry until oil starts splashing around there. You don't have to go too crazy with this stuff, but be generous. Move this one up. Get the lobes pretty good. I still have a little bit of WD-40 on them from after they got out of the cleaner, just so they didn't rust. So I didn't strip that off. I'm just going to put this right on top. So there we go. Nice even coat. Now this little thing right here, can you see it? This is your compression release. So when you're first starting up the motor, this opens up one of the valves just a little bit. I believe it's the exhaust valve, to let a little bit of that compression out so you don't break your wrist and break the starting rope and everything else when you first start up. Because if they were full compression when you tried pulling on it, it's very hard to turn over. They can be, especially if it's really cold out and that oil is thick as syrup. So let us get this into position. But before we do that, we have to put the tappets in. There's one. There's the other. And just a little trick, if you put a little bit of that super syrupy lube on there, it will help hold them into place. You can put some kind of oil or something on there, it'll help hold them too. Because these are what ride down on the cam. Should be one back here somewhere. Oh, come on, get in your hole. They should be the same size, both of them. Some engines they may not be, but this one they should be. Alright, let's see. You want to go on the front one? There we go. They may have worn differently, so one might fit one hole better than the other. So this engine's not brand new. It's not machined to factory specs, but should be close. Oh, come on. Turn this a little bit so I can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going all by feel so you guys can see. Hope you appreciate that. There we go. Okay, so those are in. Cam will be the next thing to go. Now we need to look for our timing mark on the gear. And it should be, where is it? What's on this one? Oh, there it is. They should all have timing marks. So if you can see, it looks like just a teeny tiny little divot there on one of those gears. That's going to line up with this guy right here on the cam. Well, it's a lot easier to see on the cam gear than it is on the crank gear, but those need to go into unison. So I'll put just a little bit more assembly lube in that back area. Right. That back area where the cam goes in. Come on. Alright, back in here. You can see it's all nice and goopy. I'm trying to see a little bit. Right down in here. So that's basically the bearing for the cam. We're going to put this in there and line up our crank spot. Maybe. There. So got the divot here, and then also here. You can see that little one there on the gear, big one here. So that is that top dead center for this engine. All right. So now that you've got that on, I know some of the aftermarket cranks might have spacers that go on right here. Pulling this engine apart, it did not have any. I'm hoping the other guy didn't get into here and lose them or misplace them. I'm not going to add them where there wasn't when I took it apart. I'll check to make sure that there's got a little bit of crank end play, and there's not binding up. Well, obviously it wouldn't be binding up, it'd be gapped out if anything. So we'll check that later once we get that front cover of the case on. And yeah, so that's putting in the piston, the crankshaft, the camshaft, the lifters. As you can see, those are down there, right there, and right there. And when you go to put your push rods in, they'll go in there just like that, but well, obviously could be going through the head. They right on the cam, right on that, pop up and down, and that's what opens up the rocker arms and the valves. So anyway, I think I'm gonna end this one here. I'm gonna put the front case on. The case cover should be, says 204 inch-pounds. I think my inch-pound or my torque wrench only goes up to 200, so I might just have to make up the difference there. But yeah, make sure when you do your case, you have a nice clean area. Use a little bit of carb clean, rubbing alcohol, whatever you have. Just get that oil and stuff like that off, so that your gasket's going to make a good seal on there, especially when you're putting all the other lube and stuff in there. But anyway, I'll probably throw the rest of that assembly lube around the gear here. We're going to put a little bit on here for the seal, the rubber seal right here, and shoot some oil in the bearing on the back of the cover. Shoot some oil in there, maybe a little bit of that break-in stuff. The front opposing cam bearing right there is going to get a little bit as well. I just sprayed this out with carb cleaner, so should be good to go, ready. And we'll put that case on with there. Do that off camera. Nothing special about that. Just put it on. Don't force it, and it should kind of click down into place once the cam bearing gets lined up and goes in. And then if you want, you can put a light coat of black RTV around there, but not much. Literally like paper thin. It doesn't take much at all. You don't want to put a bunch on there and then have it squeeze into here and be hitting the cam gear and all that crap and getting down in the oil sump. So anyway, that's about it for now. Stay tuned for the next video. Like, share, and subscribe, please. Thank you.